I figured if you could print a toilet, that you could actually shit in, you could print anything that you would functionally need. You really have to believe in what you're doing. If you don't believe in it, it's really hard to fake it.
A couple facts. I'm just going to set out a couple things about Samantha that you may not know, that I just learned. So Samantha is an Air Force officer. She's worked with DARPA, with NASA. She is a firefighter certified, and she's created open source movements with the first ever industrial scale affordable 3D printer. And these stories honestly go on and on and on. So I'm just curious, Samantha, what do you think? Let's go way back, even to your upbringing.
Okay.
What happened back then that's pivotal moments that have defined who you are today?
Oh gosh. Well, let's see. First I was born. No, I'm just kidding. My entire life, I've always wanted to be an astronaut. It's really weird. People ask me what I wanted to be when I was 3, and I sit up there. My mom thinks I got it from Sesame Street. So I would say that's been a really key contributor to my identity, and then my desire to even go to college, because it's kind of the first in my family to do that. And because I was always really interested in space from a young age, I was fortunate in Detroit to have teachers that recognized that and helped support me to go to space camp. Got a little book, and the back of it was a list of astronauts. So I used Prodigy. I'm 35. And at the school, and got their phone numbers or the white pages, and would call them at dinner and be like, hey, I'm going to be an astronaut. What do I have to do? And they said I had to go to college and I should probably get into science. So I did that, mainly because I just wanted to go to space. So I would say NASA's been, it has such a great return for citizens like myself, because it can really be a catalyst to help us make really positive decisions and stay driven. And that basically spoke, I would say that defined most of the decisions and experiences that I had, even throughout high school. And that and 4-H, I got really into growing Coturnix quail and Angora rabbits. Such a weird connection. In Detroit, and then writing curriculum, because the astronauts said I had to get into science and be unique. So I kind of latched onto that and convinced a bunch of inner city kids to hatch chicks in their classroom and then grow them in their basement. And so I was doing 4-H and I think space stuff my entire upbringing.
I mean, how was it difficult to plot this new path? Like, did people think you were crazy when you were doing this growing up? How did your family react
to it? The space thing? It was cool until you get to this age where you're supposed to like have more more common, if you will, ambitions. I remember I wrote a paper in 7th grade. We had this assignment. We had to say what we were going to do in our 20s, and we had to make a timeline. I think we were learning about timelines or something, or chronological storytelling. And it was for my 7th grade English class. Mr. Crawford, if he's watching this, you need to look that guy up. And we had to draw like little icons with the timeline as well, and I discussed how when I would apply to be an astronaut, and when I would graduate college, and then what I was going to do, and he told me that it was unrealistic and I had to rewrite it and gave me a F.
Wow.
I disputed it a lot, and to the principal, and started a petition to get him fired.
Did it work?
No, and I did not get an A in the class.
Did you rewrite it?
No.
No.
No. Good. I just kept rewriting it and then adding more milestones on how I would become an astronaut. Not, so, okay.
Then you did get involved with NASA, and you've worked with NASA for a couple years.
I did.
What does that look like, your work with NASA?
It was great. When I sold my company, I'd written an experiment for NASA a few years prior, and as part of that opportunity, stayed in contact with people in the agency. So when my first venture was for sale, they called me and said that the director of Space Life Sciences at the time, he was the chief medical officer for the agency, said that the agency really had to start pivoting when it came to strategic thought and communication and new initiatives and open data sets. And they really needed a younger person that had a startup, and it was a freebie because I don't think they put the job online. I think someone was like, oh yeah, I think I know a girl. a guy with a horse. And it was great. I didn't tell the company that bought our company, but I was doing both at the same time for like a month.
Yeah.
I was doing this LY forever. And yeah. And I spent 3 years there and learned a lot about bureaucracy, just talking to my new friend from the Department of State.
Yeah.
And had just met the most amazing people, got really involved with a nonprofit called Engineers Without Borders. They have a chapter for Johnson Space Center. Really awesome guy, Ron Guerin.
Yeah, totally.
It's a big part of it. Became a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And now most of our friends that were in that chapter, and most of us are now with startups of our own.
Yeah,
so
totally.
A few of those members now are now part of my company.
Yeah. So you got into NASA through an acquisition, in essence?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just curious. You're from Detroit. Mm-hmm. Nobody in your family has gone to college. You're stepped into the world saying I want to be an astronaut, and you get into NASA through an acquisition. Like, what would be your advice to kids who are like you, who have these wild aspirations, but the odds are kind of stacked against them?
Well, the great thing is like I just don't know better.
Yeah.
Because my whole career, I think, has been a series of just experiences. Because I was so excited about what lied ahead, and I think that kind of formed me and my leadership style as an entrepreneur. But I think we all say like, don't give up and don't listen to anybody.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the people in the brain trust. You got to do it, man. Your instincts are great. One thing that I have noticed, because coming kind of from the outside and being a fly on the wall, is that my peers maybe had more resources. They read books, and I did the same thing, like in trying to understand how to be an astronaut, and white papers, and go to seminars to hear how to do it and how other people did it. And then you feel like if I do that, I'll get to do this too. But what I always have to remind myself is that those people are leaders because they led, and usually they bulked the system.
Yeah.
And they did something that was different. So when I go back to Detroit and to schools, and when I have a chance to hang out with like really awesome high school kids and middle school students, I always encourage them just to like follow their instincts. And my co-founder and I actually got in a really interesting argument about this last week, because he thinks like if you're crazy, you can be a really bad entrepreneur. Or that you shouldn't be encouraged in your craziness. But I think as long as you're crazy and you work hard, like anybody can be an entrepreneur, and it should be encouraged, because even if you fail, you're still awesome, and you've learned a lot. So my long-winded answer is, I think for kids, I always say, if you're willing to bust your ass, go for it, and just don't stop, because I'm not an astronaut, but I've had an opportunity to go to college. I get to hang out with Ron Guerin. He wrote a little book and gave us a shout out. That was awesome. And I've had the chance to fly in the Vomit Comet and get pretty close.
Yeah, the Vomit Comet?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's this thing where you're supposed to throw up, but you go up and down and you get to like do experiments.
Did you throw up?
No, because I said if it doesn't go past the teeth, it doesn't count.
Nice.
I had a record for a while.
Did it come out the nose?
No, but you cannot eat Chinese donuts like a couple hours afterwards, because I barfed all over the China Star. Bad. But the other thing, circling back, that I tell kids, and I think is really important for us to remember, is every day and every moment is a choice.
Yeah.
And it's really important that I think you keep that in mind as you live your life, because we were talking about this the other night. Like nobody says I want to be a statistic, but it's that one joint, it's that one relationship, that one time I had unprotected sex, that one semester I just deferred going to college, and then you wake up and you're like, holy shit, when was I a number? And nobody chooses that, right? Like, and you never want to be in a position, I think, where you feel like life's happening at you, and we're really fortunate to live in a country where we have choices every day. So I just really try to impress on youth that they need to just be cognizant of that, and then just go for it, and just be crazy. Yeah.
So when, if I were listening to this from the outside, it would almost seem...
I'm crazy.
It would almost seem easy. It's like, be crazy, work hard.
Yeah.
Right?
I think work hard,
I want to hear a little bit more about when it's gotten really hard. I mean, I heard you mention homelessness. We didn't go into that. But when have you gotten like close to rock bottom chasing your dreams? Let's just make it real.
Well, I'm really fortunate because I don't think you can, because I could always
Yeah.
file for bankruptcy, right? Like,
Yeah.
This is it's unfortunate this is recorded, but I think about it all the time. I mean,
We can.
the downside is now I have, you know, or upside too. I have teammates and an
Yeah.
amazing community, and you know, I'm here to serve them now. But you know, when it was just me and my co-founders in my first venture, I would. It's like, you know, to my former partner, I would just say, you know, so what? So we file for bankruptcy and we start over again, you know. There's always homeless centers you can go to, and there's resources and aid programs. So I always felt, and maybe because I'd been in a position where I'd seen other people leverage them,
Yeah.
there were always these safety nets out there.
Yeah.
I did use food stamps, and I'm still kind of torn as to whether or not I should have with my first venture.
Yeah.
I was just in so much debt with college and a biotech company and fundraising and working 1,000 jobs. I just couldn't pay the bills. But yeah, I've been homeless 2 times now. It's kind of a running joke with my closest girlfriends in my 20s, and then once in college, because I've learned that you can give up your meal plan and housing, and then you know you've got a little bit more money to pay the bills. So yeah, it's not easy, but I think it is a tough position to be in when you don't know where you're going to sleep the next night, or you're hiding homelessness. And I think you and Rustin have worked with a girl who's been in a similar situation. We actually shared a room at Unlife, which was interesting. But I think covering up homelessness is probably the hardest part, and it's really tough because you kind of feel like you have this big secret, and you're kind of living this alter ego, and you're you know, they tell you in entrepreneurship to fake it till you make it. Yeah. I think my style's a little bit more direct, and I try and like live an honest life, and so it's hard to be in a position where you're kind of feel like you're always covering up something that has a lot of stigma in our society. Yeah. So that was probably the hardest part. Yeah. And being hungry, it sucks when you're hungry. Yeah. It really sucks. I hurt for anyone in that position.
And what drove you to the level to be hungry and homeless and find these ways to get extra cash? Like, was it this dream of being an astronaut? Was it the startup? Was it like what was pulling you through that?
Well, the astronaut is what got me in my college situation. And then I was homeless again with the first startup. Yeah, totally. Twice. So. Yeah, I think it's real. Being crazy. So take it or leave it. Yeah. It's not easy at all. Yeah. And that's where I think like work hard really comes in, and you really have to believe in what you're doing. If you don't believe in it, it's really hard to fake it. Yeah.
So tell us now about RE3D, and maybe start with just tell us why you believe so much in what you're doing before you even tell us what it is.
Sure. I believe that in opportunity. I believe that one way that we can help solve the issue of war is by providing education and opportunity. We had a dinner conversation the other night around employment and how it gives you dignity and it gives you the resources to support usually the people closest to you. That's what you are most concerned about, right? Your inner circle and world in the present. And so I think probably because of that and experiencing it firsthand growing up, I'm just really committed to this concept of democracy. It's probably why I've chosen to serve my country and access.
Yeah. And do you find in the entrepreneurial community in the States, it seems like there are few individuals who have served their country and are working on startups. How do you see those two things intersect?
It wasn't going so well this last year. It was pretty rough, mentally, to be honest. I went through tech school when I was doing Kickstarter fulfillment and was getting my butt kicked for 7 months, and then every weekend I was lacking integrity and working a second job and then driving 6 hours to do Kickstarter fulfillment and then driving all the way back. Wow. Sunday night to be like in my uniform at 5 a.m. Monday morning standing outside. So it's, there's just times like you literally don't have enough hours in the day, and it is 2 jobs, and it is really, really hard. There's other times where it was really compatible and synergistic. it's no surprise that we have several government customers, and it helps that, because I am a vet, I hire a vet, so we recruit them, and we have clearances on our team, so we get access to probably opportunities that other people don't.
Yeah.
This in the last few months, it all kind of came to a head as it was coming to a conflict and almost getting to a point where I had to pick. And I was really really blessed that through a series of just being in the right place in the right time, that my name came up, and Secretary Carter named me as the first reservist for DIUX. So my job is now to talk to y'all and find out what your needs are, and if there's a DoD customer that needs it and they just don't have all the funding, to make an introduction to DIUX and the team, and to help you figure out how you navigate that landscape. And so finally, like, everything's legal, and the Pentagon has blessed it, and there's no conflict of interest, and it's just like a huge weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
So I think it was more, again, trying to be honest and feeling like these two things are getting a little bit muddy.
Yeah. Can you tell us about RE3D a little bit?
Sure.
And where you're at today, but really the trajectory or the vision of the company.
Sure. So we believe, my teammates and I drink the Kool-Aid. We believe that anyone, anywhere, anytime should have access to their own personal factory. We think they should be able to innovate their own solutions on demand, and that they should ultimately have complete control over their supply chain. We also believe that unlocks new and high growth opportunities worldwide. So the first way that we tackled it actually came down to a vote. We almost tried printing from garbage first. That would have been a really bad idea. But we voted to make what we called the first affordable toilet-sized 3D printer. We figured if you could print a toilet, that you could actually shit in, you could print anything that you would functionally need. So that was our benchmark.
Have you done it?
Huh?
You printed the toilet?
No, I haven't. I have printed a urinal. I spent a lot of time in a urinal. But we have a lot of customers making toilets now. And this is a tangent, but when we do really cool prints like that, it's important to me that we have these unpaid internships. So we call them like focus projects, and they're like one-offs that don't impact our revenue stream. But I really like having the unpaid interns do projects like that, so they get the visibility and credit for it. Because I know people will think it's like super cool. And I've had that position up for like a year. If you go to re3d.org/careers, you'll see the toilet printer, and nobody wants to do it. So I think I am going to take it on. But I was like so stoked to have a high school or college student be like, yes, I 3D printed, re3d's toilet. Nope.
Samantha, I'll come do it for you.
Yeah. All right, yeah.
I'm sure there's a couple takers. Wendy's doing it.
It's a design internship. So the toilet hasn't happened, but so that's where the dimensions of Giggabot came from. And since 2012, originally in response to a challenge that Jack Daniels had put out there, we've also shared that we want to ultimately 3D print from waste. And we've kind of run down a couple of rabbit trails trying to figure out how to do that with like no budget for R&D because we're bootstrapped. And we finally settled on a way that also addresses one of the biggest limitations of 3D printing, which is speed with our style. And still don't have any money to do it because I need to start working on bringing my team up to competitive salaries, so I can't pay for R&D ambitions like that. So started doing pitch competitions again in year 3, and just got a little bit of cash. So we finally got the resources to cover the hardware hack. We're super stoked. And we've committed to getting it done within 6 months.
Awesome.
So I'm really stoked about that.
Yeah, and that is 3D printing from
garbage.
Waste.
Yeah,
from
we're going to start with post-manufacturing waste.
Yeah.
We think there's more of a breakout opportunity there, and can address the bigger need. And then we can start. We're going to keep it open source and iterate with the community to ultimately be able to reverse engineer it down to like bags and trash at landfills.
Yeah. So if you go back to the start of RE3D, always like to know if there was anything you could have known then that you wish you had known, what would it be?
It's been like toilets and trash since the beginning. But what's tough is like it was my idea, right? And then I poached my friends from NASA through Engineers Without Borders.
Yeah.
And it was all about us and our idea. And we, again, kind of going to this like you're just like crazy and you're running towards the vision and like you'll give anything for it. I don't feel so bad about my co-founder's situation, but the company now like puts food on the table for people that bust their balls on 2 shifts with their families who we know really well for this idea. And And then we have like customers doing the craziest things around the world, and some of them in situations that just I've never been in, and I can't imagine how hard it is. That idea is not ours anymore. And so I think it's important. I don't know if y'all feel the same way, but as you start to get into what, like growth, I don't know, I guess it's debatable if we're in that stage yet. I think we are, but your idea is not you and your co-founders. It's your team's idea. It's your community's idea. If you have investors, for us, it's the micro investors that backed us in Kickstarter twice. It's their idea and their vision too. And that has been the most humbling thing. And I wish, we use the word we a lot in Re3D, and we're very committed to that. And we've always bought into this idea of community. But I always wonder if there was either a little bit of ego or just too much fixation on the concept, and maybe we could have given our team a little bit more love along the way than we did. It's not about us at all anymore.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from? Have you burned through some teammates, and that's where that's coming from? Is it?
Well, we had a teammate this year. Again, kind of going back to our decision to continue bootstrapping. As you grow with Texas state law, if I offer health benefits to one employee, I have to do it to my whole staff, because I can't do that. I have a hard time talking about this without getting choked up, but we went through a really tough Q2, and just one person after another person had these crazy things happen to them. And Pascal and Jane I think they thought I was going to kill myself over this, because I was so sick to my stomach. But because of either a lack of health insurance, life insurance, or some type of ancillary benefit, they were in these really terrible predicaments. And the most exaggerated example of this is we had a teammate whose son passed away, was going to work for us. He was a teenager, died instantly in a car accident. Called me from the machine shop when he found out, because he was in shock, and we arranged for him to get a ride home. And
Can you share? Thank you for being so vulnerable and honest. Can you share a story of maybe what one of your customers has done that just blew your mind, where you never realized that something like that could be created from the Giggabot, and it just felt really meaningful to you?
I think it's a social impact. Well, I think the two things that my co-founder Matthew and I share are this commitment to agriculture and healthcare. So those use cases tend to resonate the most with us. But we're really committed to storytelling right now. So you guys give us a lot of great feedback on that. Thank you. And visiting our customers on site. And what we learned from those visits is that our technology has been part of helping some people walk and extending their lives in the last year, and that's just really powerful for us. So we have this amazing customer in Mexico City. I think this use case has been pretty well documented if you want to look it up. You guys have heard me talk about it a lot, I'm sure, but anyway, he was studying to get a PhD in 3D printing in California, was trucking along, and his mom, who's a lawyer, he comes from a higher income earning family in Mexico City, broke her arm. She's a little bit older, and had to have surgery, had it casted, and when you have a cast, you have a lot of water loss and atrophy in your joint. And sometimes that, coupled with the way the cast sits, put pressure on your arm. And so her bones kind of displaced a little bit, so she had to have surgery, got it recasted. Same thing happens a third time. They say, I'm sorry, ma'am, we're going to have to amputate your arm. And so Zaid's really concerned about this, and he starts researching it, and he's like, what the heck? And they're like, well, this happens sometimes with cast and blah, blah, blah. And he learns that and then he starts researching this, and he finds that it's, one, not that uncommon, and then particularly in Mexico in the rural areas, it's even more common. Wow. So he quits. He wanted a career in 3D printing. Yeah. Quits his PhD, flies back to Mexico City, buys one of our systems, and he comes up with this idea. It's called NovaCast. The company's MediPrint, if you look them up. And he comes up with this idea for a breathable cast. And what it is now is they've had several iterations. Is they take 16 anthropometric measurements, and they're able to create a custom breathable cast to avoid water loss. And it's super cool. Tom saw it on his new feed. He's actually pretty credible. He's pretty close, or I think he's halfway through, or more than 50% through getting FDA approval now in Mexico, partnered with leading institutions down there. But here's what's funny is Zaid, his Giggabot is in his apartment. People think he's more progressed than he is, kind of like us. He's Fignet till he makes it as well, and he's so into this. Yeah. That's what he lives for now, and he will do anything for money, like us. So Zaid gets a call from a hospital. Someone had seen him on the Good Morning America of Mexico City, and this lady was I I think he said she was older. She only looks like she's like 60 in pictures to me. Her name's Hilda. You'll see photos of her online. And she had broken her hip. And unfortunately, the way she had broken her hip and the way it was set, and the way the braces work when you have a hip fracture, it rendered her immobile because with the flex of her joint and the way it would move in the socket, it would re-break her hip. So basically, her only solution was to be bedridden. But she had some other conditions. And the doctors basically said, you're going to have to lie in a bed for 9 months for your hip to heal. And in that period of time, she was at risk of having these other complications. Well, she was a really wealthy lady. And he says it's like the Harvard or Yale of Mexico, and then the local hospital system to work with her to get a hold of him. And she said, just try. You can use me as a guinea pig, but 3D print me with that Giggabot. 3D print me a brace so I can walk. Because I have to be mobile, I have to get up, and I don't want to die in bed. So they made a brace for her. This isn't a product that they sell, it was just a one-off. And she paid him a lot of money, so he's like, it was great, paid rent, and this lady's walking around, but what's really cool is there's 2 institutions and a surgeon, and they're credible, like, studying this. And 9 months later, he just had, like, cookies with her the other day and dinner, and she's, like, walking around Mexico City, like, outside of the embassy if you want to check her out. Yeah.
So cool. And
yeah,
how many,
and that's just, like, a one-off, yeah.
Yeah, how many countries are Gigabots in right now?
50 now, yeah.
50 countries?
Yeah, we just sold one to Senegal this week, so there's 9 boxes going to the Ministry of Higher Education. I'm really excited about that.
And you feel like you're just getting started?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still like a niche product, but we're really stoked. And like honestly, like we understand like on the maturity spectrum, we're more on the immature end or the most immature here, and so like we feel like we have so much to learn from everybody in this room. So please like continue to give us your feedback. Chutzpah is welcome, because that's how we learn, and that's what we're here to do, so that we can better serve the people around us.
Who here feels like they have a lot to learn from Samantha? Yeah, Samantha, thank you so much.